Ralph DeLeo tragically ended up behind bars at the age of 82. Massimiliano was arrested in the most unexpected place he could have imagined, and Marco DeLauro was exposed after a neighbor spotted him. These are Mafia bosses who lost everything in 2025. Starting with Ralph DeLeo. At 82 years old, most men are content spending their golden years playing bocce ball, tending to gardens, or spoiling grandchildren with stories from their youth. Ralph DeLeo, however, had other plans, specifically an elaborate revenge plot against the federal officials who had put him behind bars. Born on May 15, 1943 in Arkansas, but raised in the gritty, unforgiving neighborhoods of Somerville, Massachusetts, this Colombo crime family street boss embodied the old-school mobster who simply refused to accept defeat, even as his body betrayed him with age and illness. By age 15, DeLeo had already had his first brush with the law, marking the beginning of what would become an absolutely staggering 7-decade criminal career. What makes his story particularly fascinating is that he managed to become a made member of the Colombo family, despite having cooperated with authorities in the past, a cardinal sin in the world of La Cosa Nostra that should have permanently barred him from induction. His connection came through Alphonse Little Alley Boy Persico, whom he met while both were in federal custody in Pennsylvania, proving that even the Mafia's most sacred rules could bend for the right person. By the mid-2000s, DeLeo had ascended to street boss, commanding the family's Boston operations, where his crew specialized in narcotics importation from South America, distributing cocaine and heroin across New England, while generating millions in untaxed revenue cleverly laundered through auto shops and construction companies. Wiretaps from 2008 captured him philosophizing about the cultural differences between Boston's no-nonsense mobsters and New York's more deferential wise guys, revealing a man who genuinely believed he was part of something larger than himself. But everything came crashing down spectacularly. On May 21, 2025, just 3 days after his 82nd birthday, FBI agents raided his Somerville home and discovered what can only be described as a chilling arsenal of revenge. The agents found detailed dossiers containing names, addresses, and family details of 3 federal officials from his 2012 case, a prosecutor, a judge, and an FBI agent. They also uncovered lifelike silicone masks for disguises, professional-grade burglary kits, sophisticated spy gadgets, and body cameras, all the tools a man would need to execute a carefully planned vendetta. Despite his lawyer Kevin Barron's attempts to portray him as an ailing and infirm elderly man suffering from chemotherapy for a blood disorder, hearing loss, and impending dental surgery, prosecutors weren't buying the sympathy angle. Assistant U.S. Attorney Lauren Maynard successfully argued that DeLeo has been fixated on seeking revenge for years, proving that age hadn't dulled his dangerous edge one bit. On October 3, 2025, he pleaded guilty before Judge Stacey Newman to RICO conspiracy and felon in possession charges, receiving a 2-year prison sentence that would effectively end his 50-year reign as one of Boston's most feared organized crime figures. While DeLeo's downfall came from an unquenchable thirst for revenge, this next Mafia boss's undoing arrived in the most unexpected way, during a routine dental appointment that turned into a career-ending disaster. Massimiliano Del Vecchio. Sometimes the most mundane activities bring down the mightiest criminals. For Massimiliano Del Vecchio, it was a dental appointment, specifically the numbing aftermath of getting a molar implant that left him defenseless when Spanish authorities finally caught up with him on August 6, 2025. The 42-year-old dangerous fugitive was nabbed by Guardia Civil plainclothes officers in Barcelona's upscale Gracia district, his mouth still numb from anesthetic as handcuffs clicked around his wrists, a far cry from the powerful Camorra commander he had been just moments before. Born around 1983 in Naples' labyrinthine slums, Del Vecchio grew up in Secondigliano district, one of Europe's most notorious no-go zones, where the Camorra's influence dictated everything from morning coffee transactions to midnight executions. He witnessed the 2004 to 2005 Scampia feud firsthand, a brutal clan war that left over 100 dead and turned Naples' housing projects into war zones, immortalized in Roberto Saviano's groundbreaking exposé, Gomorrah. This bloodshed fundamentally shaped his understanding that survival in Naples meant absolute loyalty to the clan. By his mid-20s, he had aligned with the powerful Mozzarella clan, specialists in cocaine importation from South America via major European ports like Rotterdam and Gioia Tauro. His value lay in modernization. He embraced encrypted apps like EncroChat for coordinating deals and used social media for subtle signaling, posting vacation photos that doubled as coded messages to drug mules across Europe. By 2020, at 37, he had become a super latitant, a super fugitive, commanding a network of more than 50 associates spanning Italy, Spain, and the Netherlands. Italian investigators dubbed him a high commander for bridging old-school extortion with digital trafficking, amassing a personal fortune estimated at 5 to 10 million euros. His 2023 flight to Spain under a bogus EU passport showed remarkable adaptability, successfully evading Rome's anti-mafia squads while directing operations from afar. But digital breadcrumbs proved his undoing. Italian DIA investigators traced his Instagram posts of Costa Blanca beaches to a quiet area near Alicante, where he had relocated with his wife and 2 children under the alias Marco Rossi. When officers moved in after his dental appointment, they found him carrying 100,000 euros in mixed currencies, 2 fake passports, a dozen burner SIM cards, 3 encrypted phones, and more than 50,000 euros in Rolex watches and gold chains, all the tools of his trade. His carefully constructed normal life, complete with backyard barbecues and children's soccer games, evaporated in an instant. Now facing extradition to Naples, he confronts potential life imprisonment for drug conspiracy, extortion, and arms dealing. If social media posts and dental visits brought down one Camorra commander, this next mafia boss discovered that even the quietest Spanish suburb couldn't shield him from the long arm of Italian justice. Simone Bartiromo. The illusion of safety proved fatally deceptive for this young Camorra kingpin, who thought distance and a false identity could shield him from justice forever. At 36 years old, Simone Bartiromo stepped from his rented villa in Orihuela Costa's gated community on July 17, 2025, keys in hand for his Audi Q5, when Policia Nacional officers swarmed, pinning him face down on sun-warmed pavement as his carefully constructed Spanish dream life shattered in seconds. His wife and toddler son watched in horror as social services temporarily removed the child, a brutal awakening from nearly 3 years of fugitive tranquility. Born in 1989 in Naples' Traiano neighborhood, Bartiromo entered a world where the district was known as one of Europe's most violent urban battlegrounds, a sprawling, impoverished area on the city's western fringe that served as the Sorianello clan's fortress. Growing up in the 1990s, he navigated a childhood scarred by the Scampia feud's spillover, that savage 2004 to 2005 clan war, claiming over 100 lives that turned streets into open-air killing fields. School was fleeting. Like many Camorra recruits, he dropped out by his early teens, lured by quick cash from drug dealers hawking heroin and cocaine in broad daylight. By his early 20s, Bartiromo aligned firmly with the Sorianello clan under the Secondigliano alliance, controlling Traiano's lucrative cocaine corridors. His edge was tech savviness. While older bosses relied on payphones, he mastered encrypted apps like Telegram and Wicker for coordinating mules, turning a local crew into an international broker. His breakthrough arrived around 2015 during a turf skirmish when he allegedly orchestrated retaliatory arson, earning promotion to regime captain. By 2018, at 29, he was the clan's de facto leader, solidified by marriage into a peripheral Camorra family. Fugitive life began in 2022 after a maxi trial indicted him for mafia association. He slipped to Spain under a forged EU passport, directing operations from afar while amassing millions in laundered profits. At the core of his criminal enterprise was international cocaine trafficking, brokering deals for 4 major shipments between 2018 and 2022, tons arriving via container ships from Colombia. Distribution funneled through Traiano's high-rises, yielding 20 to 30 million euros per load. The Dawn raid yielded 2 encrypted phones, 150,000 euros in vacuum-sealed bills, fake IDs, and a ledger sketching shipment routes. The tip came from a Sorianello turncoat feeding intel on his Marco Rossi alias, traced via a careless WhatsApp glitch. Bartiromo had thrived in Spanish exile for nearly 3 years, but Instagram geotags from Costa Blanca beaches lit the path for Interpol. Extradited to Italy by August, he faces a Naples tribunal for 4 trafficking counts plus conspiracy and extortion, eyeing 24 years behind bars. His capture sent ripples through Traiano, the Sorianello clan, now headless, fractured into splinter crews, their territories overrun by rival gunmen. Sometimes justice takes years to arrive, but when it does, the weight can be crushing. This next mafia boss learned that threatening the wrong journalist would haunt him for nearly 2 decades before finally sealing his fate. Francesco Bidognetti. 17 years of living under armed escort, constantly looking over your shoulder, never knowing if today might be your last. This was the price journalist Roberto Saviano paid for exposing the Camorra's secrets. On July 14, 2025, an Italian court finally delivered vindication when judges upheld Francesco Bidognetti's conviction for Mafia aggravated threats against Saviano, adding 18 months to the 74-year-old's already massive collection of life sentences. Saviano, present in the courtroom gallery, dissolved in tears as the verdict was read. 17 years of stolen normalcy, of isolation and fear, finally acknowledged by the justice system. Born on January 21, 1951, in Casal di Principe's flat, fertile plains 30 miles north of Naples, Francesco Cicciotto e Mezzanotte Bidognetti, his nickname meaning Midnight Frankie, grew up in post-World War II poverty, where black market cigarettes and smuggled olive oil served as currency. His father, a day laborer, instilled a brutal code of survival: work the land or work the shadows. By age 12, young Francesco was already pilfering tools from farms and hawking them in Caserta's markets, beginning his descent into the Camorra's web. The 1960s Camorra boom pulled him deeper, and by 16, Bidognetti had fallen in with local youth gangs, running protection for tomato vendors and escalating to hijackings of Fiat trucks. His first arrest at 19 for assault introduced him to Casal di Principe's true power structure, the Casalese clan, then morphing from agrarian syndicate into corporate beast under Antonio Bardolino. A 2-year stint in Poggioreale prison forged connections with future bosses, and he emerged at 23 as a made man, his nocturnal habits, plotting hits under moonless skies, birthing his ominous moniker. Under Francesco Sandokan Schiavone's iron-fisted leadership, Bidognetti became chief lieutenant, co-architect of operations spanning from garment factories in China to toxic waste dumps poisoning Italian soil. His criminal portfolio includes over 20 murders and environmental terrorism that buried 4 million tons of industrial sludge in Campania's aquifers, causing cancer clusters claiming thousands of lives indirectly. The flashpoint of his 2025 downfall traces to 2008, a courtroom note intercepted during his wife's extortion trial, reading, "You journalists continue to write bullshit. We know where you and your family are," a clear threat against Saviano, who sat in the gallery that day. After 17 years under armed escort, Saviano's testimony described his life as stolen, consumed by isolation and perpetual fear. The conviction compounds Bidognetti's 13 prior life terms, ensuring no parole from isolation in Novara prison. At 74, with diabetes and heart issues, he rots in 24/7 surveillance, his midnight plots silenced forever. From the violent streets of Naples to the seemingly peaceful suburbs of New York, this next mafia boss proved that American organized crime was alive and thriving until federal prosecutors decided otherwise. Anthony Villani. The American dream turned nightmare. That's how one might describe the trajectory of this seemingly ordinary Westchester County resident who maintained a respectable facade while secretly commanding a multi-million-dollar illegal gambling empire. On July 9, 2025, Anthony Villani received his bitter reckoning: 21 months in federal prison, a sentence that stripped away 4 decades of careful deception and revealed the calculating mobster beneath the real estate developer's veneer. At 61 years old, this Lucchese crime family captain watched his carefully constructed world collapse, taking his estimated $15 million personal fortune with it. Born around 1964 in Westchester County's Pleasantville, Villani grew up in post-World War II Italian-American enclaves, where the boundary between legitimate enterprise and shadowy dealings constantly blurred. Details of his youth remain intentionally sparse, typical for mid-tier mob figures who shun attention. But court records reveal a product of blue-collar neighborhoods, where sons of construction workers and small business owners found themselves drawn to the allure of easy money in an economy where union jobs paid bills, but gambling and loan sharking promised much more. By his late teens in the early 1980s, Villani had dipped into petty crime, starting with bookmaking on local sports bets, initially harmless pooling of wagers among friends on Yankees games or Giants matchups. The Lucchese crime family, known for infiltrating garment districts and trucking unions, cast a long shadow over Westchester, and Villani's entry likely came through family ties or neighborhood mentors. His first arrest in the mid-1980s for misdemeanor gambling was merely a rite of passage, but it connected him to Lucchese soldiers running underground card rooms in Yonkers. By the early 2000s, at 36, he had been elevated to captain, overseeing a crew of 10 to 15 associates in Westchester and the Bronx, prime territory for gambling and extortion. His value lay in modernization. While old-school mobsters stuck to street bookies, Villani pivoted to online platforms, leveraging the internet boom boom to scale operations without drawing heat. At the heart of his empire was the Rhino Sports gambling ring, a slick online operation launched around 2004 that used offshore servers in Costa Rica to host bets on NFL, NBA, and horse racing. The operation drew 400 to 1,300 punters weekly from New York City's metropolitan sprawl, raking in $35 million over 16 years, with Villani personally pocketing at least $15 million. Local bookmakers handled cash collections, settling wins door to door while kicking up 50% of profits to Villani. Money laundering was seamless. Associates bought U.S. postal money orders in fake names, routing them to Villani's property companies as rent, washing $300,000 annually that bought luxury homes and cars. Indicted in October 2022 under RICO for racketeering conspiracy, he fought briefly before pleading guilty on January 31, 2025, to racketeering with money laundering and illegal gambling predicates. His sentencing brought harsh words from prosecutors. U.S. Attorney Joseph Nocella Jr. declared, "Illegal gambling and extortion may be commonplace for the Mafia, but a prison term is a bitter outcome for mobsters who show no regard for the law." The $4 million forfeiture stripped his real estate empire bare, leaving nothing but memories of a gambling kingdom that once seemed untouchable. While illegal gambling brought down one captain, this next Mafia boss commanded an empire so vast and violent that his capture was celebrated across an entire nation, though his story didn't end in 2025. Matteo Messina Denaro. Cancer, not bullets, felled Sicily's last great mafia boss, a man who had evaded capture for 3 decades, orchestrated some of Italy's most devastating terrorist attacks, and lived a playboy lifestyle complete with Porsches and Versace suits while commanding a billion-euro criminal empire. Though Matteo Messina Denaro's actual downfall occurred with his capture on January 16, 2023, and subsequent death on September 25, 2023, his legacy of lost power continued reverberating through 2025 as Italian authorities systematically dismantled every vestige of the empire he had built over 50 years of ruthless criminal activity. Born on April 26, 1962 in Castelvetrano, Sicily's Trapani province, Messina Denaro entered Cosa Nostra royalty as the son of Francesco Don Ciccio Messina Denaro, the formidable boss of Castelvetrano, who rose from armed guard to overseer of vast estates secretly controlled by the Corleonese clan. The family home on the Zangara estate hummed with whispered power, coded meetings in cellars, envelopes of protection money from fearful farmers. Young Matteo's education was dual, schoolbooks by day, Beretta training by night. At 13, he fired his first shot under his father's watchful eye. His entry into blood rights came at 18 in 1980 with the shotgun murder of rival Vincenzo Milazzo, an Alcamo boss challenging Corleonese territory. Messina Denaro later boasted of strangling Milazzo's 3-month pregnant girlfriend Mercedes to silence her, brutality earning him Salvatore Riina's approval as a lion cub. Unlike Duer predecessors, he embraced La Dolce Vita early. Fast cars, designer suits, Ray-Bans, a playboy mafioso who bedded hoteliers' daughters and allegedly killed a jealous innkeeper who confronted him. His criminal ledger drips with blood. Over 50 murders, 7 life sentences, and orchestrating Cosa Nostra's darkest hour. The 1992 Capati bombing, 5,000 kilograms of TNT shredding Judge Giovanni Falcone's convoy, killing 5, bore his fingerprints as he had tailed the magistrate for months prior. Via D'Amelio followed in 92, slaying Paolo Borsellino and escort. He orchestrated the 1993 mainland bombing blitz, Florence's Uffizi blast killing 5, Milan's Via Palestro killing 5, Rome's San Giovanni killing 6, 93 injured total in a terrorist bid to force prison reforms. His operations centered on drugs, heroin from Turkey, cocaine via Gioia Tauro port, laundered through various fronts. The Alcamo feud netted hundreds dead. Most horrific was Giuseppe Di Matteo's 1996 kidnapping. The 2-year-old son of informant Santino dissolved in acid after 26 months of captivity, a horror later confessed by Giovanni Brusca. Extortion choked Trapani's economy with protection money from 80% of businesses. His capture came not in 2025, but January 16, 2023, in a Palermo clinic waiting room where the 60-year-old, gaunt from colon cancer, awaited chemotherapy under alias Andrea Bonaventura. A chair leg scrap from his mother's home, medical notes matching national records, unraveled his 30-year hide. Health crumbled rapidly. Transferred to L'Aquila's prisoner ward, he slipped into coma September 22, 2023, dying September 25th at 61. Sicily's last boss of bosses felled not by bullets, but biopsy. His death fragmented Trapani as authorities seized 700 million euros in assets throughout 2024 and 2025, systematically erasing his empire's final traces. If cancer felled Sicily's most wanted, what brought down this next mafia boss? A simple newspaper photograph and a neighbor with sharp eyes, proving that even ghosts can't hide forever. Marco Di Lauro, 14 years as a ghost, vanished into Naples's chaotic underworld, only to be undone by a neighbor's eagle eye and a newspaper photograph. Such was the anticlimactic end to Marco Di Lauro's reign as one of Italy's most wanted fugitives. Born on June 16, 1980, into Camorra royalty as the fourth son of Paolo Di Lauro, infamously dubbed Ciruzzo o Milionario, or Ciruzzo the Millionaire for his opulent lifestyle funded by a sprawling drug empire, Marco grew up in a fortified villa in Secondigliano's heart, where the Camorra's influence dictated every transaction from morning espresso to midnight executions. Known within the family by the code F4 for Figlio Quattro, meaning fourth son, or Il Fantasma, the ghost. For his elusive nature, young Marco witnessed the clan's ascent amid Naples' economic despair. The 1980s heroin boom turned Scampia into Europe's largest open drug market, providing a backdrop of normalized violence where bodyguards at family gatherings and whispers of rivals dissolved in acid became commonplace. Court testimonies from turncoats describe him as a quiet observer, shadowing his father during protection money collections from terrified shopkeepers. His father Paolo's 2005 arrest in Spain after a 30-year fugitive stint sparked the Scampia feud, a savage clan war pitting loyalists against defectors known as the Sicilianisti that claimed over 100 lives, turning Scampia's Vele Towers into a war zone immortalized in Roberto Saviano's Gomorrah. At 25, Marco stepped from the shadows as his father's regent, transforming the clan's decentralized heroin operations into a militarized cocaine syndicate. 2006, with an international arrest warrant issued for Camorra association, Marco became a superlatitant, evading capture for 14 years while directing from hidden safe houses, possibly in Dubai's expat enclaves. His ingenuity shone in logistics, using encrypted walkie-talkie devices for commands and forging alliances with Spanish port syndicates for seamless shipments. Under his oversight, the clan infiltrated legitimate construction bids and waste disposal operations, laundering profits while quelling dissent with precision hits. His criminal blueprint was the Scampia feud's bloody ledger, amplified by global trafficking. As regent, he masterminded the clan's response to the 2004 schism when lieutenants defected, hijacking drug routes. Key among his operations, the January 20th, 2005 Scampia ambush, where hitmen mistook innocent bricklayer Attilio Romano for a rival's nephew, gunning him down in AK-47 fire, a tragic error Marco allegedly ordered as payback. Drug trafficking was the clan's lifeblood. He oversaw 500 kilograms of cocaine monthly, cut in Secondigliano labs. Marco's odyssey ended on March 2, 2019, in a nondescript Chiaiano apartment where the 38-year-old was nabbed in pajamas, surrounded by his wife, Sira Marino, 2 cats, and burner phones. The raid, involving 150 Carabinieri commandos, was triggered by a neighbor's tip after spotting his photo in a newspaper. On November 11, 2019, Judge Filippo Amoruso delivered life imprisonment for Romano's murder, plus 24 years for association and trafficking. The fall rippled viciously. His right-hand man became a turncoat days later, spilling secrets that fueled 50-plus arrests in 2020. Permanently fracturing the Di Lauro empire. From Naples' housing projects to New York's concrete jungle, this next mafia boss rose from convicted killer to crime family leader, only to discover that freedom was just another form of imprisonment. Michael Mancuso. From killer to king and back to prisoner, the arc of Michael the Nose. Mancuso's life reads like a Shakespearean tragedy, set against the backdrop of New York's concrete jungle, where ambition and violence intertwine in a deadly dance. Born on July 18, 1955, in the Bronx's East Harlem, this prominent featured mobster, nicknamed for both his physical characteristics and keen criminal instincts, rose from convicted wife killer to boss of the entire Bonanno crime family, only to watch everything crumble crumble through a combination of federal prosecutions and his own inability to resist the life even after tasting freedom. Raised in working-class surroundings amid 1960s urban decay, Mancuso's youth unfolded during the Bonanno family's turbulent era under bosses like Joe Bonanno and Carmine Galante, whose wars over narcotics and power bled into neighborhood lore. By his late teens in the early 1970s, he was already dabbling in petty hustles, boosting cars in Fordham and fencing stolen goods at Arthur Avenue markets. His formal entry came in the early 1980s with the East Harlem Purple Gang, a violent crew specializing in hijackings and loan sharking. But tragedy and violence marked his path from the start. At 29, on August 15, 1984, Mancuso shot his wife Evelina dead during a domestic dispute, dumping her body on a bench outside Jacoby Hospital in the Bronx. Pleading guilty to manslaughter, he drew a 10-year bid at Sing Sing. Emerging in 1994, hardened and connected, his cell block stint forging ties with Bonanno soldiers that would shape his criminal future. Post-release, Mancuso pledged to the Bonannos, starting as an associate running numbers and loan collections. By 2000, at 45, he was a made man, his loyalty tested in the 1999 Gerlando George from Canada Siasha hit. Across family beef, he allegedly facilitated per boss Joseph Massino's orders. The 2004 power vacuum propelled him upward dramatically. Acting boss Vincent Vinny Gorgeous Bassiano elevated Mancuso to underboss in summer, then acting boss by November after his own arrest. His criminal dossier spans decades. The pinnacle crime, the November 30th, 2004 execution of associate Randolph Randy Pizzolo, a Bassiano order Mancuso greenlit amid fears of defection. Soldier Anthony Ace Aiello ambushed Pizzolo in Howard Beach with 4 .45 caliber slugs to the head. This, tied to racketeering, anchored the 2006 indictment. Broader operations included cigarette bootlegging skimming $10 million, ecstasy from Canada via ally Vito Rizzuto, and Bronx union rackets extorting plumbers for $200,000 yearly. Arrested February 16, 2006 in Las Vegas, he faced RICO charges for the Pizzolo conspiracy. On August 6, 2008, Mancuso copped to racketeering murder, drawing 15 years. After 13 years served, Mancuso walked free March 12, 2019 from FCI Danbury into supervised release, but freedom proved fleeting. March 9, 2022, arrest for violations, hobnobbing with wise guys, using his girlfriend's phone for pasta sauce-coded chats about hits, netted 11 months more, released July 28, 2024. At 70, he fades into retirement, his Bronx crew splintered by turncoats, embodying the Mafia's slow bleed in the RICO era. While some mobsters go down fighting until their last breath, this next Mafia boss made a different choice, one that would shake the Camorra to its very foundation and betray everyone he'd ever called family. Antonio Iovine. Betrayal from within proved the ultimate weapon against this Camorra empire, a weapon wielded by the very man who helped build it. Antonio Iovine's transformation from feared general of the Casalesi clan to government witness represents one of the most significant turncoat stories in Italian organized crime history, though his initial downfall came in 2010. Born on September 20, 1964, in San Cipriano d'Aversa, a tiny agricultural hamlet 30 miles north of Naples, Iovine grew up in the fertile yet forsaken Agro-Aversano plains, where the Camorra's tentacles had long strangled legitimate enterprise. As the son of a modest farmer in a region where the Camorra dominated everything, Iovine's childhood was steeped in the clan's omnipresence, neighbors vanishing for unpaid protection money, whispers of midnight meetings in olive groves, distant wails of ambulances after clan skirmishes. San Cipriano, with its population under 5,000, was a microcosm of Camorra feudalism, where families like the Casalesi held sway over every harvest and construction bid, turning poverty into a pipeline for recruits. By his early teens in the late 1970s, Iovine, affectionately nicknamed Nino, meaning the kid, despite his growing ruthlessness, had traded school books for street hustles, starting with cigarette smuggling across the Tyrrhenian Sea from Tunisia. The era's economic malaise, with youth unemployment topping 40%, made the Camorra irresistible. His first arrest at 15 for petty theft was merely a slap, courtesy of clan-connected lawyers. By 18 in 1982, he was a full-fledged foot soldier in the emerging Casalesi faction. Under Francesco Sandakan Scavoni's mentorship, Iovine pivoted from muscle to money man, overseeing the clan's infiltration of the Buffalo mozzarella trade. a €500 million EU-subsidized sector where Casalesi frontmen rigged auctions and laundered cocaine profits through dairy cooperatives. By the early 1990s, at 28, he was a zone commander for Aversa territories, commanding 50 associates who squeezed protection money from 80% of local businesses. The 1998 Spartacus Maxi trial convicted over 100 Casalesi members, including Schiavone. But Iovine evaded arrest and assumed de facto leadership of the business side. Fugitive from 1996, he orchestrated the clan's globalization, alliances with 'Ndrangheta for cocaine via Gioia Tauro port, ties to Spanish mules for heroin distribution. His genius lay in diversification. By 2005, the Casalesi under him controlled €1 billion in toxic waste dumping, burying northern Italy's industrial sludge in Campania's poisoned soils. His 14-year fugitive reign imploded on November 17, 2010, when 100 Carabinieri commandos found him in his hometown, masquerading as a 72-year-old retiree. By 2011, a life sentence landed for conspiracy. Yet the pivot came May 22, 2014. Iovine, 49, flipped, becoming a turncoat and spilling secrets that toppled the Casalesi pyramid, testifying against 200 figures, exposing €500 million in assets. His cooperation slashed his sentence to 10 years, earning relocation to protected housing by 2018. The once mighty general who helped poison Campania became the informant who helped dismantle his own empire. Thanks for watching. If you had a good time, keep the adventure alive by clicking on one of the suggested videos on your screen right now for more amazing content.